I'm just going to give us an update on where the geographic search and display has come since we released it with VuFind 3.1, and then kind of taking a look at what we want to be doing in the next year or so to get us to 5. And a lot of this is a result of discussions yesterday, so forgive me if everyone here has heard all of this, but I know everyone online hasn't, so I just wanted to throw some ideas out there and see where we go from there. So let's see here. So basically, things that we've done since we first released it, we've made some configuration settings changes where we've basically done a lot of bug upgrades where we are now checking for poorly formed coordinates, because with the upgrade to Solar 6 from 5, there were some issues with Solar trying to index coordinate strings that weren't perfect, and so Solar would then run out of memory and crash the whole system. So it's like, oh yeah, I forgot to put in bug checking for error trapping for coordinates. So those are in there now. So now if you have a poorly formed coordinate set, there's a whole bunch of validation, and it'll spit out an error while you're indexing. Since we took out Google Maps, we've updated some of the coordinate field names, and we've added a couple dynamic fields, so you have some more flexibility there. And then part of changing the search box to a click-drag functionality, it used to be you'd have to click, drag, and then click to make your search box, but that confused users completely, and they said, we don't like this, so please change it. So in order to get that functionality, we had to upgrade to 4.2 for open layers. So other things that we've done is done some upgrades to the geographic display components in terms of there was a bug that rectangles that were displayed across the date line wasn't displaying them properly, so we fixed that. There was some zooming, panning issues with the pop-up windows that would stay open regardless of where you zoom to, so we just close those when you zoom or pan or change the resolution. And then one thing that was also asked for by our users last year was the ability to display a lat long grid or a graticule on the map display, and so we added that as a configurable option in the config any file, so you can just turn it on or off. So that's pretty much brings us up to date where we're at, and now where we're headed. And Ari stole this from your guys' platform, so what we want to do is move to a more lightweight platform in terms of the mapping software. So OpenLayers is a really big and really powerful mapping application, but Leaflet is more lightweight, and so I want to look at moving us over to that. Here's an example from National Libraries of Finland with their geographic search, which is really cool. I love this. Very clean, very easy to use. So that's one thing that I'm going to be working today on at the Hackfest, is starting to pull that together. And then there's a whole bunch of other ideas that have been floating around that's starting to consolidate, and some ideas that came out from yesterday's talks. Definitely we want to refactor and modularize the code even more than it is, make it a lot smaller code packets that we can plug and play a lot more easily together. Definitely increase configurable options, so whether that's on the geographic search side or on the geographic display, definitely want to do that. And then in talking yesterday, maybe one way that we can improve the search result clustering is to store a hierarchy of coordinates for each of the geographic features. So we start with the most distinct point that's at the smallest resolution, and then we scale out from there. So if we have a point that, say, is a house in a city, then we also store the city, bounding box, the county, the state, and the country. So that when you're searching, then we can display and cluster on the resolution. So the map extent will then find the closest geographic feature and then calculate the center point from that. And that should solve some of the problems that we've had with our clustering algorithm when we're dealing with polygon or rectangles. So hopefully I'm going to try that out and see if that helps solve that issue and gives us some better clustering. I think for now we're going to stick with points and bounding boxes. The pros to that is that users don't have to install the JTS topology suite with Solar, but the downside is that we can't do polygon storage. However, when I was looking at Solar documentation last night, it didn't seem like the JTS topology suite is all too hard to install and configure, but I want to look into that. And actually, Ari, I might just ping you on that to see, since I know you've got that installed, to see how easy that is. And then the other thing I want to do is definitely improve our error logging during indexing, so I can just export all of that just to one file, so it's easier to find the record ID and what the coordinates are, so you can just pull that up and say, okay, go fix those and re-index. There were a lot of ideas floating around yesterday, so one of the things is to make a coordinate generator. So if you have geographic names in 653A, we could go ahead and then start cross-referencing against a lookup table and getting the bounding boxes and center points for those and storing those as we index, and make that configurable so you can turn it on or off, and do that as a pre-processing script before Solar runs. And then another idea that I'd like to look into, because we do have one server that we have a full text, it's a full text search server. I'd love to look at being able to generate coordinates additionally from full text documents. So then you can get some ideas as to what those documents are talking about. So got some ideas floating around there, and definitely some issues to consider with like misspelled place names. How do you resolve that? How do you resolve creation of duplicate and similar coordinates? So if I have one that's off by 2 degrees, I don't really want those sitting around there. And then also place names that indicate the publisher of the publication, so you probably want to exclude those, but also find a way to override that. So definitely improving the error trapping, I mentioned that before. Also for creating geographic coordinates, have some sort of log file for errors or questions where the algorithm's not sure that this is really the coordinate it should be producing. So have some way for users to verify and maybe update the record. And then a whole bunch of configuration things that we want to do with geographic searching. One being the location of the geographic search user interface. Right now we have its own page on the recommendations module, so it just pops up as its own search page, but you know, maybe we want to be able to configure that to say put it on the advanced search page instead. Or maybe you want to put it on the home page or somewhere like that. So figuring out how to do that and providing that option might be useful. Providing users with search tool options, so maybe they want to query by a circle or radius search versus a bounding box search. Maybe they want to freeform draw their polygon. And then the other big question is to display or not to display. So the coordinate results. As far as I've seen so far, we're the only ones using the search display for coordinates. So when you do a geographic search, we do return those points on the map. Some of the other installations that I've seen don't even plot out the search results. So there's pros and cons to that, but being able to turn that on or off might be useful, and maybe make more usability of this feature. Search results clustering, some of the things we talked about last year was basically when you have on your search results cluster, if you can hover over a cluster point, maybe you can show the center points of all the other records that are clustered into that, and then hover over those and click on the pop-ups to see what records those are. That would be kind of nice to have. And the other I've talked about. So. And then even more. One more thing I'd like to do is do more like this or a similar items display on the map tab. So basically you've got your main record geographic features, and then maybe there's some way we can show on the map similar items that are in the same location, or I'm not sure, I haven't fully thought this one out, but I think it would be neat to have, you know, your own records, geographic features, and then say these are other ones you might be interested in, and this is where they're located. So that's something else that I wanted to talk about. And boy, I just flew through those, so there's a whole lot of thought, things that are, this is my huge wish list, so we'll see what I can get done before next year, and definitely happy to collaborate and get help on this as people find interest and stuff. So I guess that was more lightning than storm. So any questions? Cool. Well, that was that.
Quick comment.
Yeah.
Installing JTS is quite easy, so it shouldn't really be a problem.
Okay, good.
You just need a couple of jar files and some configuration in the schema file.
And that's pretty much it. Okay.
Yeah. Other one other one I wanted to comment on is center points.
Yeah.
We found that indexing center points for all the features that we are indexing is really important if you want to boost the results by how near they are the search area. Since Solr is not really capable of doing that for others than simple points. So we are now indexing polygons, rectangles, and always the center points too.
That makes sense. How do you handle then, like when you do a geographic search, how do you handle zooming in and zooming out? Do you have to recalculate the center point on that? So for example, if I have something that intersects that polygon, one, will it show up? And two, if my search box is basically away from where that center point is. That's the issue that we're running up against, is that if you have a search box with a polygon feature that overlaps it, and the center point of that polygon is outside your search box, it confuses users when they see their search box and then they see points that are outside of it.
We currently let the users be confused.
Okay.
So because we are already displaying the whole polygon or the whole feature, whatever it is, on the map, even if it's only a partial hit. So
okay.
So the center point can be outside the selected area, but so can be part of the feature itself.
Okay.
So we found it not to be a huge issue, but of course it would be even better to have something that would magically work right. But I don't think I haven't come up with any better solution for that. So
okay.
we just decided to leave it like that.
Okay. That sounds great. Yeah.
So when you talk about indexing different layers
Mm-hmm.
of geography, do you envision that as being sort of specific tiers? So every record is going to have, a continent point, a country point, a region point, or something, or would it be more open-ended than that? And if it were more open-ended, how would you pick which layer to display at which point?
So the question is on indexing the multiple layers of coordinates for each point, how do you pick which point to use?
And
also,
how do you decide which points to index?
And how do you decide which points to index? Those are really great questions. So my first thought on that was that when we get a point, we'll if we can use the GeoNames API, or at least the files, since the API's got limiting restrictions on usage, you find that point, because you're basically doing a lookup against a geographic name. Now this gets into the point you'll have to do the reverse lookup when you have coordinates. But if you can set that structure and then you take a look at the map extent and then of the view that you're showing, and from that's when you choose which of the points to use. The downside to that is computational power, and that's something that we really have to look at. The upside is that at least you'll always have, for the most part, I think if it works right, your Solr search should be always able to pick up that record, because it's going to be able to slice right through. And then it'll be able to display something that makes sense, rather than, especially if you're only doing center points of each of those are all, should always be within that search box. So, and from the search results view, it doesn't matter that you're not showing the actual zoomed in feature, because you're clustering and unclustering. So it should help with that, but I have to look at, obviously, the computational load that's going to put on the server. So that is an issue I'm quite aware of, and I haven't wandered into it yet. So cool. Well, that was that. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
So what I've been doing for the couple of two or 3 days, whenever I have a chance, I've been fixing our JavaScript files in Finland. I just noticed that we actually have 50% more JavaScript than there is in the Bootstrap 3 theme. the custom one, custom JavaScript. I mean, of course, the libraries are a whole other thing, but there's a lot, and there hasn't been any style checking or validity checking in that, and it means that we have occasionally run into trouble, for example, with code that works fine with most browsers, but fails incredibly badly in Internet Explorer, like missing a trailing semicolon in a crucial place. So now I started using ESLint for our code too, and it has resulted in about 5,000 changed lines. Of course, that also includes indentation and everything like that. But hey, it makes me really happy to see the code looking all the same in all the different files, and I've also caused a certain number of bugs in the process, overlaid variable names and things like that, which are like, oh wow, this has passed on, and we've been using this in production for I don't know how long. So what I was trying to say, and I wanted to this kind of lead into, is that these tools to help check the validity of code, be it PHP or Java or JavaScript or anything, are really good, and we should use them whenever we do any coding. So we have been using PHP CS fixer and the checking stuff that's in the Travis builds for all the PHP code for a long time, but there is a whole lot of things that we could use checking for too. I think maybe CSS checks could be done better and everything. So this just to tell to everyone that hey, do the checking and do things like that, because you catch the bugs and the code looks nice and everything stays somehow more focused and clean and nice and cool, and maybe it would be useful for VuFind also to check more of the custom themes by default. I guess there could be a mechanism to go through all the themes and check the JavaScript of them too, so that it would automatically, well, of course in the beginning it would be a lot of annoying stuff, but in the end I think it would benefit all the developers that are doing custom code and adding custom stuff to VuFind, at least to help them see where they get it wrong and not blame the base software. And then it would, of course, improve the quality of VuFind installations that we see live. So, of course, you can't really enforce such things, but at least you could have the defaults in a way that would allow you to check everything that anyone ever does, because we all make mistakes. That's true. So that's about it. I don't have any more about that, and I need to obviously do a lot of testing now that I've been changing all these files. But that's something I'm really happy to do, because it leads to much cleaner code and higher quality code. So thanks for providing the foundations and including the tools that we need to use. I needed just a couple of small changes to the Travis configuration and the build configuration to make this happen for our code too. But maybe we could work out some ways of doing that without customizing the build scripts. That would be even nicer, because then I'm always in trouble when I try to merge all the changes upstream. Thanks, that's all.
Thank you, and definitely just to completely reinforce what you said, I like to do style fixes because I'm picky and I want it all to look uniform, but so frequently when I do that, it reveals bugs. So it's not just about being picky. A
lack of style compliance is often a symptom of a deeper problem or exposes something that you wouldn't otherwise notice. So yeah, everybody do that. It's good.
Exactly, well said.
And so I think,
I have a question.
Oh.
I have a question.
Chris is coming up.
Hi, Aaron. How would you feel? I talked to a bunch about Prettier, which is a pretty heavy-handed style enforcer. It has the power to rearrange all of it. It completely parses and then rearranges all of the code. It works on JavaScript and CSS and Less and Sass and basically everything as far as the front end goes. As like the other major JavaScript force, how would you feel about something like that introducing like a Git hook that every time you commit, it reformats all the code in probably a more opinion way than we do now, as opposed to right now we have the ESLint test that if the test fails, you have to go manually fix the JavaScripts, but you have more control. Would you feel better about keeping that with new like rules, or would you be okay with like releasing some style control to make sure all the code looks very uniform?
That's a really difficult question, I think, because there are like situations where automatic fixing of stuff is really nice and useful. But if it's if the results you get are really unexpected, that you commit something and suddenly it just doesn't look anything like you were doing, it can be really puzzling and even off-putting if the changes are not to your liking, of course. So I haven't played around with Prettier, so I can't really say how it would end up with our code. It could be okay, but I think we need to do some testing to see how it turns out. So I don't have a definite answer for that yet.
Maybe
But, of course, I can try to run it with our code and see how horrible or how great it turns out. So maybe I can have some more, but maybe at least provide the ability to do a full fix-up for stuff like we have with PHP CS Fixer. So you can have it report only, or you can have it fix the stuff it can fix, or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know.
maybe I'll try to
I don't know how
hack
easy.
that.
Sorry, I don't know how easy it is to, for example, make mistakes that cause something like Prettier to do stuff that makes the code work, but work not in the way you intended, for example. So that's maybe my concern with other concern with tools like that.
Yeah, I would share the concern of, I'm nervous about anything that just automatically does stuff, especially if it's significant stuff. And I'd be also concerned about things like, how does it deal with comments? If it's completely refactoring the code for you, are you losing expressiveness in that happening, et cetera? So I'd at least start in an advisory rather than active mode, and then see how it feels from there.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe I'll try something for the Hackfest today, because there are report modes. I don't know how helpful they are, but we can see.
Great. And certainly maybe the Less and the CSS are a place to start looking, because that currently is under no control
Yeah.
whatsoever.
I think people are less opinionated about how their CSS looks as
Right,
well.
Right.
So, I'll try to do something for the Hackfest today. So I'll send it your way when it's done.
I'm interested in hearing the results.
All right.
Please keep us posted.
We'll do.
And also on this subject, I'm interested if anyone has opinions on Java code quality measurement tools, since it would be nice to do something with the indexing code that we have, but I'm not sure. I'm sure there are many, many options. I don't know what the best ones for our purposes might be.